The city was quiet at night. Neon lights blinked above the dirty streets. The wind was cold and the sky rumbled with thunder. Rain began to fall slowly. Most people had already gone inside. No one wanted to be out on a night like this. Jacob walked alone, carrying a small bag of tools on his back. He was a mechanic coming back from work. His boots splashed through puddles as he crossed an alley. He stopped when he heard something. It was a sound. A soft, broken sound. A cry. Jacob turned his head. The cry came again, this time louder. It was not a baby. It wasn't a human either. It was something else. He followed the sound, slowly, carefully. In the corner of the street, behind a broken food stall, he saw her. She was sitting on the ground, her back against the wall, her head down. She looked like a young woman, thin, small, shaking. But her skin wasn't human. It was pale blue, almost glowing in the dark. Her hair was long, silver white, and full of dirt. Her arms were wrapped around her stomach. She looked up at him. Her eyes were big purple and full of pain. "But please," she whispered. "Food. Please." Jacob didn't move at first. He was shocked. She was clearly alien. But more than that, she looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Her clothes were torn. Her feet were bare. She was crying quietly like someone who had no hope left. Just then, 2 city guards walked by. One of them laughed when he saw her. "Still alive?" the guard said. "No one wants you, alien filth." The other guard kicked a can at her. "She's probably faking it. Let her die, not our problem." They walked away, laughing. Jacob felt anger rise inside him. He looked at the girl again. She didn't even react to the guards. She just kept shaking, her hands still holding her belly. Her lips were cracked. Her arms were thin as bones. He reached into his bag and pulled out a protein bar. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. He stepped closer. "Here," he said softly. "Eat this." She looked up slowly. Her fingers trembled as she took it. She bit into it like she hadn't eaten in weeks. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't stop chewing. "What's your name?" Jacob asked. She didn't answer. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." Still no answer, but her eyes softened. She didn't look afraid of him now, just tired. So tired. Jacob looked around. People walked by, but no one cared. They stepped around her like she was trash. He couldn't just leave her here. "You can't stay here," he said. "It's not safe." She didn't answer again, just stared at him. "I have a small place," Jacob continued. "Just a workshop, but it's warm. You can rest there." Finally, she nodded. Jacob helped her stand. She was so light, it scared him. She could barely walk. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. Then he led her slowly down the street, away from the cold, the lights, and the cruel people. Jacob's workshop was small. 1 room, a workbench, and a fold-out bed. He helped her sit on it and brought her some warm tea. She drank slowly. Her hands were still shaking. "I'm Jacob," he said again. "What's your name?" This time, she opened her mouth, but her voice was almost silent. "Zara." Jacob smiled gently. "Nice to meet you, Zara." He gave her a clean blanket. She held it tightly like it was the most precious thing in the world. Then she curled up on the bed and closed her eyes. Jacob watched her. Who was she? Why was she on the street? Why did the guards hate her so much? As he turned off the light, Zara whispered something in her sleep. "They'll come. They'll come for me." Jacob froze. Who was coming? And why was she so afraid? He didn't know it yet, but helping Zara would change everything. Forever. The workshop was quiet the next morning. Rain still tapped softly against the windows. Jacob sat at his workbench pretending to focus on his tools, but his eyes kept drifting back to the fold-out bed in the corner. She was still asleep, curled up like a small child, the blanket pulled up to her chin, her silver white hair spread across the pillow like a soft cloud. She didn't move much. Only her chest rose and fell slowly. Jacob sighed. His hands were stained with oil, but his mind was full of questions. Who was she? Why did she say, "They'll come for me"? And why did the city guards treat her like trash? He had seen a lot of things in his years on this planet. Broken droids, broken ships, and even broken people. But this girl, she looked like something precious that had been thrown away. A few hours later, she woke up. Jacob noticed her eyes first. Bright purple, but not as wild as the night before. This time, they looked confused. Afraid, but not panicked. "You're safe," Jacob said gently. "No one's coming here." She sat up slowly. Her hands clutched the blanket like she expected it to be taken away. "Do you want water?" he asked. She nodded once. He brought her a small cup. She drank in silence. Her hands were still shaky. Then finally he asked again, "What's your name?" She looked down. I had a name once," she whispered. Jacob frowned. "Had?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "Zara." The name was soft, but it felt like something important. Like a memory she was afraid to touch. "That's a beautiful name," Jacob said. Zara didn't smile. Instead, she looked at the blanket again. "They said I didn't deserve it," she whispered. "They took everything." Jacob didn't push her for more. He just nodded and brought her a small plate of warm food. Basic stew, nothing fancy, but real food. Zara looked at it, then at him. "You're not afraid of me?" Jacob shook his head. "Why would I be?" She stared at him for a long time. "Because I'm marked." She turned her shoulder slightly and Jacob saw it, a strange mark on the back of her neck. Faint, but glowing softly in blue. "What is that?" he asked. "A brand," she said. "It means I'm no one. It means I belong to them." "Who's them?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled the blanket tighter and said, "I wasn't always like this." Jacob waited. Then slowly, like peeling off a painful bandage, Zara began to speak. "I was born in the high towers of Drelvith," she said. "My family was part of the healer caste. I trained to use touch and sound to heal others. I never wanted to fight, never wanted to hurt anyone. But when the war came, they changed everything. They forced healers to serve in the war. I refused." Jacob nodded, listening carefully. "They called it betrayal," Zara said. "They stripped my name, took my caste, and sold me to a noble family as punishment. They marked me, turned me into a thing." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but her voice stayed calm. "I escaped 2 months ago. I've been running since." Jacob's stomach twisted. She wasn't just any alien. She was someone once respected, once gentle, now reduced to a starving girl on the street because she refused to harm others. He looked at her again, really looked, and he realized this wasn't just about helping someone poor. This was about protecting someone precious. "You can stay here," Jacob said quietly. She looked at him, her eyes full of disbelief. "I don't have much," he added, "but I'll keep you safe." Zara blinked. "Why?" "I'm nothing now." Jacob leaned forward. "No one is nothing," he said, "especially not you." For the first time, a small smile touched her lips, just for a second. And in that moment, the cold world outside faded. Just a little, but unknown to them both, a ship entered the city's airspace, silent, fast, and hunting, and it carried one message. Target Zara located. Prepare for retrieval, dead or alive. The sun had not even risen properly when the silent ship entered the skies over the city. It had no flags, no ID code, and no warning lights. Its black metal body blended with the clouds. No one on the street looked up, but inside that ship were hunters, bounty trackers, cold and professional. And on the screen in front of them was a single image, Zara. Her face, Her glowing mark. Her last known location. Target confirmed, one of them said. Orders? Another asked. Alive is best, the leader replied, but dead is allowed. Meanwhile, in the corner of the city, Jacob was fixing a broken drone. Zara sat nearby sipping warm tea, wrapped in a clean blanket. Her face was no longer pale, her eyes no longer dull. She looked almost alive again, but her body still tensed at every sudden sound. Even the smallest noise made her jump. Jacob noticed. You okay? He asked. Zara nodded quickly, but it was a lie. That morning she had woken from a nightmare. She didn't tell Jacob what it was, but in the dream, there were metal hands grabbing her, pulling her back into a cage. She could still feel the cold chains. She looked at Jacob now, the human who had given her a name again, food again, warmth again. But what if they found her? What if she brought danger to him too? Jacob, she said softly, what would you do if someone dangerous came for me? He looked up, surprised. I'd stop them, he said simply. Zara looked away. Even if they wanted to kill you? I'd stop them anyway. She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken like that to her before. Everyone else only cared about the price on her head. Jacob didn't even ask how much she was worth. That was why it scared her. Across the city in a dark control center, the bounty ship had locked onto her location. A signal blinked. Tracker activated. She's near Human Sector 9. Confirmed warm body inside. The leader of the bounty crew smiled. Poor thing, he said. Still thinks she's safe. Back in the workshop, Jacob had finished tuning the drone. It buzzed to life and floated in the air. Zara smiled for the first time. A real smile. It's cute. Old model, Jacob said, grinning. But still useful. He opened the drone's interface to check its sensors, and then his face froze. Zara noticed. What is it? Jacob didn't speak. He stared at the scanner. It showed a faint signal outside the building, a foreign scan. Unfriendly. Searching. He stood up slowly. Zara, he said quietly. Pack your things. We need to move. Now. Zara's hands shook. No, she whispered. It's too soon. They're here? Jacob nodded. We'll use the back tunnels. But if they catch you, I said I'd protect you. She looked at him, saw no fear in his eyes, only determination. They grabbed what little food and tools they could and left through the back door. The alley behind his shop led to an old network of underground passages. Once, used during the food shortages, now forgotten. The air down there was cold and damp. Lights flickered. Pipes hissed above their heads. Zara stayed close to Jacob, her heart pounding. Above them, the bounty ship hovered in silence. Back in the workshop, 2 masked bounty hunters kicked the door open. The place was empty. Too late. One of them growled, but the scanner beeped. There's a heat trail, still fresh, they just left. Then hunt, the leader said. This time, no mercy. In the tunnels, Jacob kept checking his small handheld scanner. We have a few minutes, he said. They're close, but not fast enough. Zara looked around. Where are we going? I know someone outside the city, Jacob said. An old friend, off-grid. He'll help us hide. Zara touched his arm. Why are you helping me this much? I'm not even human. Jacob stopped walking. He turned and looked her in the eyes. You cried in the dark, he said, and no one else listened. That answer broke something inside her, not in a bad way, but in a quiet, healing way. But just as they neared the exit of the tunnel, boom. A blast rocked the tunnel wall behind them. Dust flew. Lights went out. Footsteps echoed. Zara gasped. Jacob pulled her behind a large pipe. Voices came closer. She's nearby. Zara whispered. I won't let you die because of me. Jacob pulled out an old shock tool, his only weapon. You won't, he whispered back, because we're getting out of here together. The tunnel was silent again, but only for a moment. Smoke curled in the air. Broken pipes hissed. Lights flickered above like dying stars. Jacob held Zara tightly behind the metal pipe, heart pounding. The old shock tool in his hand was shaking, but he didn't let go. Zara's breathing was fast, but she was quiet. The footsteps stopped. One of the bounty hunters stepped into the open, turning his scanning visor left and right. "They're still down here," he muttered. "The girl's signal is fading, but not gone." The other one tapped his wrist. "The human is shielding her signal with scrap metal. Smart, but it won't save them for long." Jacob whispered, "When I say run, you run." "No," Zara whispered back. "I have an idea, but you must trust me." Jacob looked at her, really looked. Her purple eyes weren't just scared anymore, they were glowing, not from fear, but something else. Power. "I was trained to heal," she whispered. "But my caste, we were born with something deeper. Something hidden. That's why they branded me." Jacob frowned. "What do you mean?" Zara closed her eyes and placed her hand on the metal pipe. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a strange wave of warmth spread through the tunnel. The lights above flickered, and then went out completely. The hunters cursed. "EMP surge. Damn, I've lost all systems!" Jacob stared in shock. "You did that?" Zara nodded weakly. Her hand trembled. "Only for a few seconds. We need to go now." They ran through the dark, past rusted walls and echoing pipes. But Jacob had more questions now than ever. How did she do that? What else was she hiding? They reached a ladder that led up into a forgotten warehouse. Jacob pushed the door open. Sunlight burst through, warm and golden. They were out. Inside the dusty warehouse, Zara collapsed to her knees. Her breath came in short gasps. "You okay?" Jacob asked, kneeling beside her. She nodded. "I'm just tired. That power, it burns energy." Jacob gave her water. She sipped it slowly. "I need to tell you something," she said. "You need to know the truth. Everything." He listened carefully. "I wasn't just a healer," she said softly. "I was born with something rare, something forbidden." Jacob watched her eyes carefully. "It's called a Lassi, an ancient force. It lets us connect with energy around us, not to fight, but to feel, to see, to protect." "Like a mind power?" Zara shook her head. "More like a soul thread. It links us to life, but the ruling families feared it. They thought it made us dangerous. So they destroyed our caste, one by one." Jacob was quiet. Zara looked away. "When I refused to serve in war, they found out I had a Lassi. That's why they didn't just exile me. They tried to erase me." Jacob slowly reached for her hand. "You still have it," he said. "You're still you." Zara looked up. Her eyes shimmered. "You're not afraid?" she asked. Jacob smiled. "No. I think it makes you amazing." For the first time, Zara didn't cry. She didn't hide. She smiled too. But miles away aboard the bounty ship, a new voice joined the hunt, a voice that chilled the others. "Bring her to me. Whole if you can. Pieces if you must. I want her power. What's left of it." It was Lord Rivak, the one who had ordered her branding, and he had just arrived in orbit. Back in the warehouse, Zara suddenly shivered. "What's wrong?" Jacob asked. Zara placed her hand on her chest. "He's here." "Who?" "Rivak, the one who owned me, the one who marked me." Jacob's jaw clenched. "Then we don't hide anymore, we fight." Zara looked at him, shocked. "I'm just a mechanic," he said. "But I've got tools. I've got courage. And now, I've got you." She couldn't believe it. No one had ever stood beside her like this. She leaned forward and whispered, "Then we fight together." Outside the warehouse, the bounty hunters had regrouped. They were coming, and behind them, the shadow of Lord Rivak loomed large. But inside, two hearts beat in unity, One human, one alien, ready to stand. Together. The warehouse doors creaked with every gust of wind, but inside there was no fear. Only silence. Jacob stood near a wall of old crates, scanning the city map on his wrist screen. Zara sat nearby, rewrapping the cloth around her marked shoulder. "They'll reach here before sunset," Jacob said. Quietly, Zara nodded. "I felt them. The air. It's too still." She was right. The bounty hunters had regrouped. Lord Revok's personal soldiers had landed. They weren't hiding anymore, they were hunting. Jacob took a deep breath. "We can't stay, not here, not in the city." "I know a way," Zara whispered. "An old sky tunnel. Before they locked me in chains, I used to help the wounded escape through it." Jacob turned toward her. "Where?" "North District. Under the ruined Temple of Overell, but it's deep, and the entrance is buried." Jacob looked outside. The sun was dipping fast. They didn't have much time. "Then we move now." They didn't take the roads. They ran through alleys, jumped fences, crawled under old bridges. Zara followed Jacob, her breath short, her legs aching, but she didn't stop. Every few minutes she would glance up at the sky. Black ships floated above like vultures. They weren't scanning. Yet. Jacob held a small jammer in his pocket. It was working, but barely. The signal wouldn't last long. "Zara," he said, panting. "How far is it?" 5 blocks. Maybe less. A sharp sound cut the air behind them. A shriek of engines. One of the hunter drones had locked on. Jacob grabbed her hand. "Run!" They turned a corner just as the drone fired. A plasma blast lit up the wall they'd been beside a second before. Stone and metal exploded in sparks. Zara stumbled, but Jacob held her tight. They dove through a half-broken door and slid into an underground stairwell. The tunnel below was dark, but it smelled of earth. Old, untouched. "We're close," Zara whispered. "I remember this place." Jacob looked back up the stairs. The drone didn't follow. Too narrow. But it wouldn't take long before soldiers came on foot. Deeper inside the passage, they found a circular chamber, collapsed at the edges, but with one large stone door in. The center. Zara knelt before it. "This is it," she said. "The door opens only for someone with a lassi." She placed her hand on the stone. Nothing happened. Jacob watched her. She tried again. Still nothing. I can't focus," she said, tears in her eyes. "I'm too scared." Jacob stepped forward. "Then don't focus on them. Focus on me." Zara looked up. "I'm here," he said softly. "I see you. Not your power, not your past. Just you." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and this time, the stone glowed. Lines of light formed under her hand, circling outward. The door opened. They rushed inside. The tunnel beyond was curved, smooth, and ancient. A transport line, long dead. But Jacob could see old rail pods still resting along the tracks. "This used to be a secret evac route," Zara said. "It connects far outside the city walls." Jacob smiled. "Then let's ride." He opened the pod, reconnected the energy wires with his tool, and, flick, the engine hummed, just as the first enemy footsteps echoed from behind. They jumped in. Jacob slammed the control lever. The pod shot forward down the tunnel, fast and smooth. Zara collapsed in the seat, gasping. "They'll follow," she said. "Let them," Jacob replied. "They'll have to catch us first." Zara looked at him, and for the first time, her fear turned into something else. Hope. Back in the city, Lord Revok stood over the broken warehouse. The wind carried Zara's scent. His soldiers found the stone door still glowing. She used them. "Elsie," he said, eyes narrow. "She's stronger than I expected." A soldier asked, "Should we pursue?" Revok turned to the black sky. "Oh yes," he smiled cruelly. "Now the game truly begins." Far away, the pod zoomed through the forgotten tunnel, sparks lighting the darkness. Zara leaned against Jacob's shoulder, whispering, "I was alone for so long." "Not anymore," he said. "You have me now." The night outside still hunted them, but inside that pod, something beautiful had begun. The rail pod slowed as it reached the end of the forgotten tunnel. Faint light shone through cracks in the ceiling. Thick vines hung from above, and the smell of fresh air told Jacob they were close to the surface. Zara sat up, rubbing her arms. Her energy had returned a little, but her face was still pale. "This is the last stop," she said softly. "We're outside the city now." Jacob nodded. "But they're not far behind." He stepped out of the pod and looked around. They were in the ruins of an old temple, crumbled walls, fallen statues, and ancient stone covered in moss. It was quiet. Too quiet. Zara climbed out behind him. There used to be a resistance camp nearby, deep in the forest. Jacob checked. "The scanner. We don't have time to search for it. They'll be here any second." Zara looked up at the sky, and then she froze. A dark shape passed across the sun. Hfycodex warship. From the sky, it came like a shadow. Long, sharp, silent. It hovered above the forest, then slowly lowered toward the temple ruins. Inside the ship, Lord Hfycodex stood tall in black armor. His eyes were cold, his voice colder. "Open the doors," he said. "I will take the girl myself." Jacob pulled Zara behind a broken pillar. He reached into his pack and handed her a small device. "What's this?" she asked. "Pulse grenade," he said. "Just in case." She shook her head. "You can't fight him. You're just—" "I'm not just anything," Jacob said. "And neither are you." The ground trembled as the warship landed. A ramp opened, and a dozen armored soldiers stepped out in formation, and then he appeared. Hfycodex tall, strong, his armor glowing with red energy. Zara shrank back, but Jacob stepped forward, alone. "Move aside, human," Hfycodex said, his voice full of disgust. "This is not your fight." Jacob held up a tool, his shock welder. "I don't care," he said. "You won't touch her." The soldiers laughed. Hfycodex didn't. "You protect a creature who defied her blood," Hfycodex said. "She is nothing." "No," Jacob replied. "She's someone who still has a heart. That's more than I can say for you." Hfycox's eyes flashed with anger. In a blur of motion, he raised his hand and a red energy blast shot toward Jacob. Zara screamed, but Jacob didn't fall. The shock welder absorbed the blast. Sparks flew, and Jacob dropped to his knees, but he was alive. Zara ran to him. "Run," he said, coughing. "Please." "No," she whispered. "Not this time." She stood up, tears in her eyes, power in her heart. Zara stepped between Jacob and Hfycodex. She took off the wrap from her shoulder. The glowing brand was still there, but something had changed. It was no longer a mark of shame. It pulsed with light. Zara raised her hands, and the earth shook. The vines around the ruins came to life. Roots burst through the ground, wrapping around the soldiers. Trees bent toward her, answering her silent call. Hfycodex tried to lift his hand, but his power was blocked. Zara's voice rang clear. "I am Elasi. I am not yours, and I will never be caged again." The forest responded. A wave of energy blasted from her body. The soldiers were thrown back. The warship's engines sparked. Hfycodex stumbled, stunned. Jacob watched in awe. She wasn't just fighting. She was rising. Hfycodex roared and charged, but Zara met him with a pulse of blue light that struck his chest. His armor cracked. He fell to one knee. "You lost," she said. "No," he growled. "You were made to serve." She stepped closer, calm and powerful. "I was made to heal. But if I must protect, I will." With one final surge, she pressed her hand to his chest, and the mark that once branded her burned away. A flash of light. Silence. Hfycodex collapsed, his armor empty, his power gone. Zara stood still, breathing hard. The warship engines shut down. The soldiers, leaderless, fled into the forest. Jacob got up slowly and walked to her. "You did it," he whispered. "No," she said, turning to him. "We did." They sat together as the sun rose. No more running. No more hiding. Zara leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time since she had cried in the dark, she smiled. The sun was high in the sky now. Birds flew over the trees. The forest was quiet again, as if the earth itself was breathing easier. Jacob and Zara sat beside the old ruins. The broken temple behind them now felt like a grave for the past, for fear, for pain. Zara looked at her shoulder. The brand was gone. No more glowing mark, no more symbol of shame, only smooth skin remained, warm under the sunlight. "I don't feel afraid anymore," she whispered. Jacob smiled beside her. "Because you're free now." They rested under a tree for hours. Jacob fixed the small drone that had followed them from the city. It buzzed around happily. Zara laughed softly. "It's still working?" "Barely," Jacob said. "Like me." She smiled and looked away. Then her eyes softened. "You know," she said quietly, "I never told you my real name." Jacob looked up. "I thought it was Zara." She shook her head. "That was the name I gave myself when I ran. It means lost voice in my language." Jacob was silent. She turned to him, her eyes glowing gently. "My true name was Ellis. It means light from the silence. But I was told to forget it, to forget who I was." Jacob said softly, "Then maybe it's time to remember it." Zara, Ellis, nodded slowly. For the first time, she embraced her real name, not as a burden, but as her strength. The next day, they traveled through the forest together. Ellis guided Jacob to an old sanctuary deep in the woods, half buried in vines hidden from the world. It was once a refuge for the Elasi, now forgotten. But not anymore. Ellis stepped into the stone circle and placed her hand on the pillar. It glowed faintly, welcoming. "Her home. I want to rebuild this place," she said. "Not just for me, but for others like me. Lost ones, hiding ones, hurt ones." Jacob nodded. "I'll help." "You don't have to," she said. "I want to," he replied. She looked at him, and this time when she smiled, there was no fear. Only trust. Weeks passed. Jacob built walls with his tools. Ellis cleared vines with her energy. Together they turned ruins into shelter, a broken sanctuary into a home. And then, one by one, others came. An old Elasi woman who had been hiding in the mountain. A child with glowing eyes. A silent man with healer's hands. They came because they heard a whisper through the forest. "She is back. The girl with the light. She is not alone anymore." Jacob taught them to build, to fix, to farm the land. Ellis taught them to heal, to feel, to hope, and slowly, life returned. One evening, as stars blinked above the treetops, Ellis stood by the fire with Jacob. "You saved me," she said, "when no one else even looked at me." Jacob looked into her eyes. "You weren't broken," he said. "You were just waiting for someone to see you." She stepped closer. "And now?" she asked. Jacob smiled. "Now I see everything." She reached out, took his hand, and in the quiet of the forest where once there was fear, now there was love. Years later, they would still tell the story of the girl crying in hunger in the dark and the human who listened. But in this ending, the girl was no longer crying. She had found her name. She had found her home. She had found her future.